Hello and welcome. I am Ayse Hogan, as you guys know, the visionary and founder of the International Academy of Universal Self-Mastery, as we lovingly coin IAUSM. And I'm just going to take a moment here and just introduce IAUSM and what our topic is about today. So the commitments that I base on my own existence in this life are awareness and real conscious living. And those commitments are really surrounded by remembrance of who and what I am, reclaiming, remastering the power of my limitlessness, and helping other people in humanity, in the community, to do the same thing. And understanding that we have it. We all have it. No one is without this beautiful limitlessness. And we simply need to remember who and what we are. And it really is so much easier than you think. So my focus is providing a sacred and safe space for those of you in a state of remembrance or are eagerly looking for it. And we have coined this awakening. I like to stick with remembrance. For those of us, so that we can have like a supportive and safe and quiet space to fully step into reclaiming mastery and have all the guidance and the interaction that we all require. So imagine if you could exist in this life exactly how you have always wanted to be. And I'm going to use the word be. The way that you have felt drawn down deep inside to follow that feeling of knowing, like that inner knowing that there's this better version of you. If you could only allow it, if you had the courage to be without all the noise outside telling you how you should be. And what if that was our purpose? What if our purpose is not about, what can I create for the world, but more so about how can I be what I was meant to be? And what if I could have a place to discover that? So really that's what IAUSM is about. So many of us look for our purpose, and maybe that is our ultimate purpose. And what if that, just you being the be that you're supposed to be, is how you contribute to humanity by simply being who you were meant to be without all the noise? What if you had a place that you could examine and investigate that? So this is IAUSM. And today's topic is the Bulimic Ego. And we're going to chat about that. And that's the voice inside that creates havoc within us. All of that messed up. I'm not going to call it chaos because I actually like chaos, but it's all the havoc inside us that doesn't allow us to see ourselves as the beautiful image of the creator that we are. It's that voice that loves to the point. It's that voice, that ego voice is the voice that points out who we aren't, who we are not. We always hear who we are not. And that's that voice in our head, and we all have it. And it never lets us fully step into who we are. That's its mission, right? And it does this with a massive amount of judgment that also makes us feel like sometimes like we feel like we're insane. So I heard the term bulimic ego while I was reading the book, The New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And it really, really resonated with me. So many of us try to fill ourselves and make ourselves feel better by bringing in what I call our addiction of choice, whether it's food or retail therapy or drugs or how much stuff can we buy or whatever your behavior addiction is. We all have it. There's always something that we want that makes us feel better. And I always like to guide people to think, look at how many celebrities that have it all. They have everything that we've all thought that we should have that looks like success, and then they end up dying in self-induced ways. We binge and we binge and we binge. And we hope that that is what's going to fill our wholeness, right? How much money, how many shoes, how much can we have? So this is what I want to share with you today, and what our panel is going to share with you today. I'm so excited about this topic. And to feel great by going inside instead of looking on the outside. And Patricia, you once in another segment that we talked about that I was in with you, you said something, and I want you to sort of, I'm going to put this over to you in a second, where you said, let's not go out, but let's stay in. Right? So this sounds like a super great staycation. And I really want you to take this moment to please introduce the remembrance of who you are and what you are, and comment about that let's stay in.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Patricia Maddalena. I am a therapist for the last 20 years. I also work with Ayse and Gail. We're part of the dream team in IAUSM. And yeah, part of the new going out is staying in, and that internal exploration of who we are, what we can do, what's our place in the world. And when we sort that out, when we come into alignment with that, then the outside world changes. I think Buddha was like, you can change the outside world all you like, the reflection in the pond, and you can splash it around, but it just comes back to being the exact same reflection in the pond. It's only when we change our perception of ourself do we change our life experience. And that, I suppose, that perception of ourself, that mental construct of ourself, the ego, if you like, is based on what you are, what you have, what you do, what you look like. The ego, I suppose, simplified, is just the story that we create that tells us and others who we are and our place in the world. The ego is the me story, and depending on what that me story is, will be defined in the ego. So it's quite very personal. Some people base it on the job that they do. I am a psychologist, or the role that they play. I am the victim, or I am the survivor, or I'm the savior. We start building our ego from a very young age, from the womb. Our parents, our school, religion, friends, books, films, it all feeds into our perception of who we are. The ego is the story about me. It's that internal voice that tells us what we're good enough for, who's good enough for us, what we deserve, what we don't deserve. But that is not all we are. And that's the key to it, that all of that is just a construct. It's like a scaffolding that it hangs on and through and in, and we sit in the center of all of that. And I suppose that's what I love about IAUSM, is that we have so many beautiful pioneers and mentors that can help deconstruct that mental perception of ourself and bring us home to who we truly are, in true alignment with ourselves. And then it's from that place that we can truly start experiencing this life in all of its glory.
That's awesome. Thank you, Patricia. Yeah, it's this ego that has put an identity on us, and we try to very hard to stick within that identity, I guess. Dr. Dave Hillis is also one of our IAUSM mentors, and please, Dave, talk about your remembrance of who you are right now and how you show yourself in the world, and I'd love to hear your comments on this.
Well, good morning, everyone. Well, from the USA, but good day to everyone else in whatever time frame you're in. So I'm Dr. Dave Hillis. I am a very proud member of this IAWSM family and faculty. It's it's just my new fam. I love them. Anyway, they are so amazing, and so I love that I get to contribute as one of the ambassadors for the Akashic Records within our IAWSM platform. I work as a lifestyle engineer with clients in my private practice, helping them find those tools that help them be, as Aisha talked about, be the highest version of who they choose to be. Um, when I saw this topic and I and getting to listen to everyone's definition or what it is that how they define the ego. And, for so long, I think I'm not actually part of that normal stream of folks where the ego gets this bad rap, so to speak, or that it's a negative thing. There's always been this huge push about getting that ego under control. And I do agree with that, but what I do think that it needs to be a balance. And I think that from a soul contract perspective, that we are looking to find balance within each one of those sectors within our life, whether it's our professional, our intimate relationships, our families, all of those things, and where the ego plays in that and helping us have a balance with it. In like the Oxford Dictionary says that it's just a person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance. And self-esteem is so critically important when we start looking at any of the healing processes that need to happen within our lives. If we don't have self-esteem, then we're not worthy of healing. So therefore, we need to bring that self-esteem up so that we have the advantage of knowing that we actually can heal and that we deserve that healing of whatever that might be that's in our life path. And something that struck me that I want to talk about later on is some bulimic events of the ego that happen in our lives. So that's just a tickler that I want to chat with you guys about. And thank you so much for letting me be part of this group. And I love everybody here. So that's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. That was awesome. I love that. And we have another person with us today. We got another two people that want to talk about the bulimic ego today. So Melinda Attilas, she joins us from Canada too, and is also one of our beautiful IAUSM mentors. Melinda, let's hear from you.
Hi, Ayse. Thank you. And it's so nice to be here again. Yes, I've watched it grow from the beginning, and what an extraordinary adventure. It's just such a beautiful vision, people coming together and really shining. And it just feels so light and so beautiful. I really appreciate being part of this team, this group, this community. Thank you for that. And I happen to have a similar point of view as Dr. Dave. Well, first of all, I work as an intuitive, high impact life coach and an energy facilitator, and that's how I serve the people that I work with for the past 15 years. And the ego is a really interesting little critter. It's really interesting to note that how much is wrapped up in it and how much we're identified with it. And as Eckhart Tolle says, the moment that you start to shine the light of your consciousness onto the thoughts and the thinking that's going on in the moment, that's when your ego starts to go yikes, and it sort of takes a back seat, because consciousness and shining the light of your consciousness is basically it's an ego killer in a sense. And while the ego thinks it's going to die if you have too much consciousness going on. So there's this battle where it sort of wants to take the front seat. Again, I don't believe that it needs to be destroyed per se. I believe that it came in here where I believe that there needs to be a balance. We don't have to get rid of it completely. It's what gets you out of bed in the morning sometimes, but we have to allow the spirit to come forward and take the lead. That's my opinion. The ego, the spirit, the soul, they're meant to harmonize and work together in balance. It's almost like the ego is sort of like the lid that keeps the spirit in the body. And the spirit seems to be a very delicate, gentle, light-filled being, energy of light. And the ego is a little harsher. It's a little bit more, has it warns you from dangers. It warns you from pitfalls, but sometimes it takes that negative energy to a really intense place that's out of control and not based on anything that honors your being. And so what happens is, instead of working together, the ego sort of takes the lead, and that doesn't create balance. It creates a space of fear, and we make a lot of choices based on those fears and based on what we're unwilling to lose. And primarily, the ego does not want to lose. It doesn't want to lose your identification with it. It wants you to stay distracted by it. This is how it keeps feeding itself. So as long as we start to really find tools and practices, which IAUSM has in abundance, we can start to shine a light on that egoic framework and start to calm it down, start to get it to relax a little bit so it's not overeating your consciousness, where we can allow the gentleness and the quietness and the kindness that you truly be to come forward and allow you to create from a place that's more true for you, not from a place of fear and panic. Because the ego, if you look at it, the roots are based on, what am I going to lose? What does that mean? And underneath all of that is basically fear. It's a fear-driven energy. And so you can't just blast love at it, because if you have subconscious programs working in the background, that's not going to work. We have to look at what the programs are in the background that are running the show, start to dissolve and disengage from those programs, and really start to look at, well, if I was truly being me, what would that be? And being, interestingly, isn't something that you can cognitize, logicize. It is an energetic frequency. It's an energy. You can't think it. You can't analyze it. It's something different. It's energy. It's not possible to start talking about it. The moment you start to really try to analyze it, you diminish it and you confine it. So this is where that space of meditation and inner reflection and shining the light of your consciousness and really asking questions. The question, who am I? And more importantly, who do I be as a being? What is my being? And getting that sense as a pure ingredient. What is that? And really getting the energetic sense of it brings you closer to bringing that gentleness, that spirit, that wisdom, that knowing up into the foreground. And it doesn't squish the ego. It just gets it to calm down, where you're in charge without a heavy-handed authoritarian energy, which is more egoic. You're in charge with a space of kindness and grace and balance. And I think that's how we get out of this bulimic ego business, in my opinion.
Awesome. Thank you. God, you guys are so amazing. You guys are also amazing. Jules Hare, another one of our amazing IAUSM mentors. I would love to hear from you too.
Hello, everyone. It's so wonderful to be here, to see all of your faces, little fingernails here. I am so graced to be a part of this IAUSM tribe, and it's so perfectly fitting, obviously, that I should chose this topic, because IAUSM is all about letting go or befriending or making more gentle, as Melinda would say, that relationship between ourselves and ego. So just forging a new relationship that doesn't have to be that cap on top of the soul, keeping it confined. Like I said, my name is Jules, or introduced. Thank you, Ayse. My name is Jules Hare, and I just love working with kids and families and helping people with their own inner child work, embodiment facilitation. By trade, I spent the past 30 years as a cranial sacral therapist, specializing in pediatrics and families. I'm an author, and I absolutely love connecting people to the wisdom of their bodies and just watching the amazing magic that happens when we realize that our body and our soul and our beingness is there, just ready and waiting for our attention. And I, as you can tell, get pretty passionate about that with a childlike excitement. When we're speaking of ego, I think it's so powerful. Actually, last night I had the amazing honor of being able to be a midwife at a birth. I am not a midwife by trade, but I was the one there that stepped into that role because there was nobody there to step into that role otherwise. And it was so beautiful how just being there and letting myself just flow with what was happening uh, allowed for this opportunity. And the 4-year-old son was there as well. So there's the mom and the dad and the 4-year-old son. And he was doing his very best to help and to help and to help. And once we were just there and there wasn't anything else more for him to do, he said, "What can I do now?" And I said, "You know what? We need you here, but we just need you to be here. And that's most important right now. Can you just let yourself be here? Because that's what mom and dad need, and that's what this little baby needs. Just needs you to be here. And I'm going to do my best to be here too. We're just going to all be here together." And you could tell he looked around the room just to see if that was actually, something that was real or if I was just bullshitting him. And when everybody else was completely relaxed and we were between contractions, and smiled at him and said, "Yeah, we can just be here. That is most important." He really relaxed into it. And 5 or 10 minutes later, he said, "It's okay that I'm just here being. That's what you need, right?" And we said, "Yeah, and you're doing a great job." And it was one of those really amazing moments in retrospect because it was just last night and I'm still processing a lot of it. Magical experience. But that little boy knowing and trusting in his ability to just be and the power of just being and it being accepted. And that was something that a lot of us didn't have growing up, was that opportunity to recognize that just being has and holds such great power. And this bulimic ego, this topic today, is so powerful in that if we can come back around to that, and of course we're going to get pulled out, but if we can keep coming back around to just being and trusting in that being, and that ego is just trying to pull us into the doing and making things happen and seeing things on the outside and the repercussions of our actions and bringing ourselves back to the power of being, as all of you have said at different times. And I got to witness it last night in such a beautiful way through the eyes of that 4-year-old and the repercussions of his beingness and the power, the profound power. So I'm excited to be a part of this conversation. Thanks so much. And I can't wait to see what happens next, you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And what a great experience. That must have been amazing, especially if you're not a midwife and you get invited into this birth. That's so awesome. It's so awesome. I want to just quickly, there's this chapter in The New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, which is, I think it really illustrates what ego doesn't want us to do, right? So it says that some egos know that what they want and pursue their aim. Okay, some egos know what they want and pursue their aim with grim and ruthless determination. So they point out people like Genghis Khan, Stalin, Hitler, a few of the larger examples, and the energy behind their wanting creates opposing energy of equal intensity that in the end leads to their downfall. And in the meantime, they make themselves and many other people unhappy. And in the larger than life examples, they create the hell on earth. So our ego, if we let it do what it wants, it's going to create our personal hell on earth. And it's going to make other people unhappy too. And most egos have conflicting wants, and they want different things at different times, or may not even know what they want, except that they don't want what is, which is the present moment. The ego never wants what is. It always wants what it can't have, or more power, or it's again binging on something. So the one thing that we have to understand is our consciousness and awareness wants to be in what is. in this moment and to be open to all the possibilities, where ego wants to stay far away from what is and take you down some roads that you may not want to go into. And I think my personal opinion of this is that I think the ego regurgitates a lot of our personal beliefs, right? So it's, what are the commitments that we've made to ourselves? If we are committed to not feeling good about our body, our ego is going to keep regurgitating things that is going to shine a light on every flaw we think we have. If we feel that we don't have enough money, then ego is saying that I am not enough. And it shines a light on that feeling of not enough and incompleteness in every area of our lives. So it takes the commitments that we've made to ourselves and shines this massive light on it. And it doesn't want to see that you are beautiful, that you are amazing, that you are special, and you are the reflection of spirit. And it doesn't want you to see that. And it will do everything it can to keep you away from that. So what you need to do, what I think you need to do as a strategy, is think about, what commitments have I made to myself? What do I keep saying to myself and keep ingraining in myself that's rubbing me the wrong way clearly and sending the wrong message to ego? So perhaps if we make different commitments, things that are more empowering, that open all the possibilities, by changing our commitments, I think it has no doubt in the end that it's going to change the language of the ego. How could it not? And that's just my thoughts on that. What do you think, Patricia?
Yep, I totally agree. You have when you were saying that about, the ego shining the light and there's all that negativity, I was also thinking about, it does depend on how you were brought up. So if you are the perfect, I was thinking of the film Encanto when you were talking there, which is I don't know if anyone's got children or watched Encanto, but it kind of draws upon archetypes within family units, and one of them is the girl that can't get anything wrong, is perfect and is beautiful. And so the ego can play that game as well, that you are the bee's knees, you are the biggest and the best, and create kind of a narcissistic, kind of egocentric personality type. The ego is in our control, though. I remember a few years back I was listening to, I can't even remember his name now, but he was so funny. He likened the ego to the cleaner. So imagine a really massive corporate business and the directors have all gone off on a weekend and the cleaner is there cleaning, and the phone rings and he decides to answer the phone, and he answers the phone and he answers the question, and then because they don't come back, the rest of the directors don't come back in, the cleaner thinks he or she is in control of the company and starts making like really bad decisions, and mucking it all up, which I just thought was hilarious and really kind of shone a light on the ego and how it can make decisions for us but not for us in any particular way. The other thing I was thinking about as well in terms of a metaphor was the ego can like a shopping cart, and what we do is we mistake the content of the shopping cart for who we are. So it might be our car is in the shopping cart, or our job title, or our appearance, or how much money we have in our bank account, and then we compare shopping carts as we're moving around the moving around life. We're like, oh, she's got a bigger car than me, or he's got a better job than me, and that can make us feel not so good and like we're not doing enough and not being enough. So we try and put more things in our shopping cart, but of course this is really unstable, because if we lose our job or lose our flash car, we feel it, we're triggered massively because we've wrapped ourselves up and identified with this shopping cart. And it's about, really, for me, when I heard that analogy and that metaphor, it was like, oh, I'm just going to let go of my shopping cart. That shopping cart isn't me. All of that good stuff I've put in, all of that rubbish stuff I've put in, it's not me. So again, like Melinda said, who is it that I am? When it comes back to who I am, what is it that I like? What is it that rocks my boat and sings to my soul? And coming back to that and letting go of a shopping cart and judgment.
That's awesome, right? The shopping cart, and how much of us wrap ourselves up in what we have, how much we have in the bank, and have allowed all of that to become our identity. And what would happen if all of that was taken away? Who would we be if all of a sudden you're standing in the middle of a street and you no longer have all of that stuff, right? What would that do to you? I kind of think that for myself, and I'm going to move to Dave here in a second, if I think that I've come far enough that if that happened, yeah, I would freak out a bit, but I would definitely be like, let's see what happens now. But I can definitely say that's not who I was. I would have been flipping out, right? But now it's just like, you know what? It's okay to be in the moment and say, okay, well, this is my moment now. I'm standing in the middle of the street. I don't have any of my stuff anymore. And that's okay. And just move forward and see where that leads me. But it takes a lot to do that. I think it takes a lot. I know I certainly couldn't have done it a year ago even. Dave?
Yeah, it's a wonderful exercise to run ourselves through, if you will, to do like a practice run or a drill, if you will. If I were to lose absolutely everything, um, everything that identifies as who I thought I am, and then bridging that gap of who I want to be. It's almost always, I mean, I've been in the field of helping folks for well over 24 years, I think, something like that. Anyway, almost everyone that I've ever worked with, there has always been one constant, and that is there's going to be a crisis in your life. It's just what we're supposed to have. To me, from a sacred contract perspective, that's what we're here for, is to work through it. And how am I going to be on the other end of whatever that event's going to be, or as it's evolving? So if we can count on, at any breath, we could lose everything that identifies who it is that we are. What tools then do I have at my disposal so that I can get to the other side of that? And who is that other person? Um, for me personally, that's kind of when a lot of my journey started, when I was in a car accident and paralyzed in a wheelchair for 2 years. And when I was in my early 20s, and everything that I thought I was, I had to re-examine. And then also everything that I thought I could do and should do, and um, who you are at that moment when that changes, really get you to pivot, if you will, because that's been our favorite word for the past 2 years. um, so if you haven't already in your life had one of these experiences, it really does figure out, it really sets you in that position to get super intimate with your ego, to find out what actually you have as far as stamina, to make it through. And it's that soul stamina, I think, is what really helps guide us and aid us to the other side, and bridges that gap between who it is that you think you are and who it is that you want to become. And I love having that introspect, in that conversation with clients when I work with them, because for an illness that they want to overcome, or whatever that crisis that it is that they're trying to work on, I need to make sure that they can see the other side of that. So if they already then have the tools that they don't know they're getting yet, who is it and what is it that you want to become? Because we need to set our waypoint for that, so that we can get to that place. And do you really think that you can heal from this? Do you think you can survive this? We don't need to figure out how yet, but just need to make sure and touch base that yes, you can get to that. And as long as we have that there, then it's all green lights from there. And then we start with the navigation to get there. So that's what I've got to add to that.
You know what's amazing, Dave? That I have known you. First of all, that's amazing what you've just shared. I love everything that everyone's sharing. Um, but that I've known you for as long as I've known you, and I didn't know that you had a car accident and that you were in a wheelchair for 2 years. And the reason why I think that that's fascinating is that usually when you get to know someone, they're always telling you about the awful things that they've been through and not so much about the great things that they've been through. So usually when you're building a relationship, you hear about this stuff. And I've known you now for what, like a year or so, and this is the first time I am hearing about this. And for some reason, I find that fascinating that you don't, as much as it's part of your story, it's not the most important part of your story. It's a pivot point for sure, but it's not how you identify yourself. And that's super interesting because I meet a lot of people who say, "Oh yeah, I've got this and I've got that," and they're automatically putting out the things that they have that are wrong with them and what they've been through. And that's how they identify themselves. So I just, in this moment, I don't know, it just was like an epiphany. I was like, how did I not know this about him? Because it's part of his life, but it's not his life. It's not how he identifies himself. So thank you for sharing that piece. And that I found that to be very enlightening for me. And Melinda, I would love to hear from you.
Okie dokie. Well, I'm looking at this. I've been looking at so many different things lately in my own space and with people in the world today and all the stuff that's coming up. And a lot that's coming up actually is PTSD. And not that it hasn't been there before, but it's just coming a lot more to the foreground. And I'm just noticing that the with the ego, the bulimic ego, what do we do when we feel like they're emotionally in trouble, or when this PTSD comes in, and when we feel like we're going to lose something, as Dave was talking about earlier? Well, we start to feed. We start to try to fill in that space, that uncomfortableness, the void. We start to try to, put more and more and more on top of it to try to calm everything down so that we can feel better. And then ultimately we're like, wow, this is not good. And then we try to purge all of that stuff. And that's a pretty intense process. Yeah, I'm using the word eating, but obviously we're talking about feeding, emotions and everything else like that. So all of this trying to fill the void with something is not really sustainable, and it's really hard on the system. And if you ask anybody, really, if you go to someone and say, hey, do you want peace in your life? To be like, yeah, I don't know anybody would say, no, I don't want peace, I want total struggle in my body. I don't know anybody would say that. And it's really interesting because we say we want peace, and yet there is this internal struggle and conflict that goes on so often that we may not even realize it anymore because it has become so normal. We've normalized it, and it's like, yeah, this is me. This is how I be. This is who I am. This is how I live. This is how I survive. And as long as we have that internal struggle, that ego is full blast, full speed ahead. And so one of the things that we want to maybe look at is how much resistance are we functioning from? So what is resistance? Resistance is everywhere so what's the opposite of resistance? Let's put it that way. If you could stand or just be present in front of whatever is occurring in front of you in your life, and just be present with it, and don't have an opinion about it, no point of view about it. Just be present with it with no point of view. And be with the energy. That's actually where you're able to receive what's going on without judging it good or bad, right or wrong. It starts to eliminate the resistance. Now, it's not going to be easy to do that just right off the bat. It requires you to exercise these energetic muscles where you can start to look at, okay, well, what am I reacting against? Now, that could be something as subtle as you're just irritated in your head and you don't say anything, to a full-blown screaming your head off. And so what is this reaction? What is going on? And that reaction is actually what starts to really feed this ego. And it starts to really, that's where we start to really do this bulimic thing. And we start to go down this path and completely lose ourselves and lose control. And this thing has just completely overtaken us. So if we can get really present to what's before us, what's going on in front of you, your child is not behaving in a way that you would like, or you're a little bit panicking because your mutual funds are going down, whatever. What if you could just get really present to that and just allow and notice the energy moving through your body and recognize this energy is not who I am. This is not who I be. This is something that is occurring in my, and notice the reaction. Right away, just notice, okay, I'm having this reaction. This is the beginning, in my opinion, how we can shine a light of our consciousness onto where the ego wants to take a situation, run with it, take it out of control, and throw you into a full-blown version of PTSD kind of energy. And so, yeah, I'm all about the pragmatic tool. So I think that if we can start to really take a look at this, we can quell this energy, calm this down, and start to go, okay, well, if I was functioning from peace, if I really am asking for peace and ease, what else could I choose in this now moment? What is going to work for me? And instead of looking for an answer, because in this reality, we are taught that the answer is very valuable. The question, not so much. However, the question is what actually engages the quantum entanglements. The question, well, what does that mean? The question is what allows you, when it's open-ended and generative, it allows you to access so much more of who you are that you've suppressed because your mind, your ego, has been taking charge. And your ego can only give you information based on past experiences, things that you've read, basically from the past, because basically past experience information. It's not gonna tell you, it's not gonna allow you to be really present with what's going on right now. So if we can practice that exercise and start to ask the question, there's a flash of insight, a little wisp of awareness that can come in. And that is the beginning of really starting to function from a space that goes beyond what your ego tells you is possible. Your ego will say, nope, there's nothing there for you left. This is what it is. This is what we've experienced before. And this is how it's going to be. And you either say, yes, that's fine, and live like that and resist anytime something comes up that doesn't work for you. Or we can start to really get into question and just see if we can get present with what is. Now, it takes practice. And just even for a few moments to get present, it will start to calm the nervous system, and you will start to regain a little bit more control where you can see what the ego is doing. You can pay attention to it, and then you have a choice. What am I going to choose from here? And that's my 2 cents.
That's awesome. Your 2 cents is always worth way more than 2 cents. You always like to say 2 cents, and I'm like, that was
Okay,
way
50
more,
cents.
more than that. But there's a couple of things that you said there, a couple of words that you used before I moved to Jules, and it was tolerance, normalcy, how we think, how we have become and allowed, and I think not even allowed, accepted. We have become tolerant and have accepted the ego and its boundaries of our greatness as normal. And we've accepted it into our lives as normal instead of saying, hey, no way, that's not normal, that's not okay, right? Because if someone was pushing us, it's almost like it's self-abuse. It really is self-mental abuse when you think about it. If you don't get ego aligned with your proper commitments of where you want to go and have it working with you as a team player instead of against you, then really it is a state of mental abuse. I think about things I've gone through as I grew up, my dysfunctional past. And when I think about it, my childhood, things that I said were okay as a young adult, other people were mortified, because I just thought it was normal. My tolerance level was so high that what I thought was okay, other people would be like, are you kidding? Right? That is not okay. So we do recognize it sometimes in our outside world, sometimes, as long as it's pointed out to us, but it's how tolerant have we become to the bad behavior of our ego that we've fed this information to with our limiting beliefs and bad commitments, that it is actual self mental abuse. And as I'm listening to this today, this is really what's standing out for me, is that we abuse ourselves. And if we abuse ourselves, well, we've created a playground for other people to treat us badly, or for us to treat others badly, because we think it's okay. And it's so not. So it's also that tolerance level. I think that that's a really important, is that we need to bring that tolerance down. And when you start to move inside into your staycation and go in and start to really understand and remember who you are, the love for yourself begins to grow. And as the love for yourself begins to grow, the worthiness in yourself begins to grow. The tolerance automatically just follows suit and starts to lower and go, no, that's actually not okay for me anymore. It might have been once, but not now. So that starts to just automatically happen. So yeah, thanks for bringing those words up, because that was just like, for me right away, started to like click in my head. So thanks for that, Melinda. And Jules, I want to hear from you.
Yes, I have to say that it's wonderful going last and hearing everyone's explanations and shares, because it just brings so many amazing pictures into my mind. And like Patricia, I work with a lot of kids, and my imagination and curiosity leads the way when it comes to most things that I do. So I appreciate all of the beautiful analogies that you guys made. The cart, Patricia, that was really fun, and the janitor, as well as the light, Melinda. When it comes to shining that light, I love to describe it as a flashlight as well of our attention. And it makes a beautiful package, that the idea of being bulimic and just taking something from being an experience to being something outside of ourselves that we can see, that we can bring curiosity to. And I do believe, just like you were talking about there, Melinda, when you were talking about the resistance, and to eliminate the resistance or to access that resistance of the ego, it's so powerful to be present. And from my experience and working with kids and inner child work, the importance of almost turning up the dial of curiosity. And when we are super curious, and when curiosity is louder or brighter or turned up higher than everything else, then we can actually step out and see things from a different perspective and experience them, and or watch them, feel them, the multisensory playground of our bodies and beingness. When we can do that with curiosity and shine that light of our consciousness, of our awareness and attention, with curiosity behind it and with compassion, then the way that we perceive things changes. And it's almost like our ego can't exist, or it just can't shine brighter than that curiosity. Like you said, it's kind of starving it out, to add another analogy. That potential to just keep feeding the curiosity and feeding the curiosity. And every time you notice a pattern or a program at work below the surface, just like turning up the volume of curiosity. And in that, it's almost like you tip that beautiful teeter-totter, where it's at the fulcrum and then boom, drops down to the other side, just like on the playground. And once the curiosity is more, then the ego is holding the rules and the expectations and the judgments. It's like you can see everything from an entirely different perspective. And I just really appreciate being a part of this conversation, and the idea of the bulimia as another great analogy of just like eating and eating and eating because it feels good to eat, or it's what everybody else is doing. And then going, wait a second, something just doesn't feel right anymore. I think I just ate too much. right? And oftentimes I know bulimia is all about feeling ashamed and guilt and all of those pieces, but being able to say, wow, I don't have to just keep holding this in. I can let go of this. And obviously, when it comes to bulimia, it's more of a pattern, an associative play over and over and over again. But it's also a recognition that our body knows that what we've done isn't necessarily what we need to do, and it's an unhealthy relationship. And at the same time, when we acknowledge that we want to eat, and we also don't need to eat as much or change the way that we perceive things, we can find a disruptor to the pattern, the anomaly, the love, the curiosity that breaks that old pattern and allows us to see things differently. So thank you for all of those amazing visuals that came to life and animated themselves as you were describing them. And I actually have to go now. Actually, because of the birth that happened, I need to check in on the mom. There's something going on. So I'm going to say a farewell to you guys. And thank you so much for including me in this awesome conversation. I will listen to the rest later because I know I don't want to miss it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jules. And you aren't last, by the way. We're in a nice, beautiful circle here. So this is great. So we're just going to be wrapping this up now anyways. And good luck with where you're going. And I think that's amazing what you're doing. I still think it's great. So, and just wrapping this up, I know we all have so much more to share, but, we want to keep this into this hour. And, at the end of the day, our ego always wants us to feel incomplete, always not having enough, as we summarize through this. And what that translates to in us is I am not enough. And that separate individual that has forgotten who and what they are. And that, if we could stand on the other side of the mirror and watch ourselves, we might make other decisions. And understand that formlessness side of us is basically kind of in a very sort of metaphorical way is kind of standing on the other side of the mirror and watching us live our lives. And that we have this need, many of us, to stand out or to be special. And what I'm going to say to you right now as we wrap this up is that each person on this planet is special because they came from the Creator, full stop. We're each masterpieces because we came from the Master. There is no but about that. There is no what if about that. It simply is. There are no victims. There is only mastery. Because what are we victims of? An illusion. Just to keep remembering that we are not living a life. We are life. We're not dancing a dance. We are the dance. We're not performing on a stage. We are the stage. And you're not the clouds. You're the sky, leading into an endless universe of possibilities. So no ego can last without the need for more. Hence the bulimic ego, the pathological monster of disorder and havoc. And even though we fill ourselves up with stuff, whatever your stuff of choice is, you will once again feel emptiness, a void, because you're not being. You're playing some part that you've committed yourself to play. You're playing on the stage. You're not being the stage. So remember forever that you are the masterpiece that came from the Master. You are the dance. You are life. You are the stage. Be open to all the possibilities of what that has to offer, as it's infinite. And thank you for joining all of us today. And share this with those who you feel it might help. And if you've not joined our community yet, come to IAUSM.com and request free access to our community of mastery. And thank you, all of you, for being a part of this today, guys. Thank you so much. Patricia, you're awesome. Melinda, we missed it. She's gone. And Dr. Dave, thank you, thank you. Thank you, guys. Any last minute shares?
Thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with everybody. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I look forward to next week.
Thank you, Ayse. That was really, really wonderful. Thank you for inviting me to the conversation. It was great.
Same thing. Thank you so much, everyone. I love all of you immensely, and I can't wait to see what this conversation can help folks change into. Thank you.
Awesome. And see you at next week's version of the IAUSM Kitchen Table, where we will be talking about the possibility that questions open up for us. So that's going to be an exciting conversation too. So talk to y'all guys later and have a fantastic day.